Welcome to Wednesday. It's the 10th of February, 2021. The Arctic air is going to be deepening. We're starting to have things come into a little bit of a clearer picture now with the weather, but for at least another day, the Arctic standoff continues. Yesterday was a great example of the battle between the Pacific and the Arctic. Areas along Wyoming's southeastern front range and then into the front range of Colorado saw temperatures go from single digits and teens to the 40s, then back to the single digits overnight, as there's a little bit of a back and forth right at that boundary. But boy, the plains across Montana, northern, central, eastern Wyoming, Nebraska, the Dakotas, is continuing to see that Arctic air. Now, the push of Arctic air to the south and southwest is going to happen between Thursday and Saturday. As that Arctic air deepens, it's going to get colder and snow chances are going to go up because Pacific moisture is going to collide with Arctic air, bringing accumulating snow to many areas. Confidence in that is going up. And honestly, this is what happens when you have a big Arctic outbreak like this. Right when the Arctic air gets the deepest is usually when something is going to come in from the west to help eventually move out the Arctic air, but during the interaction between the air masses, you're going to get some snow, and that's what's going to happen. The picture is becoming more clear, getting more confident now about the forecast, especially for areas west of the Continental Divide that are kind of living the life of Riley right now. If you're watching this in western Wyoming, western Colorado, Utah, and Idaho, you're really just staying out of the Arctic air. But some of you, not all of you west of the Divide, will get into the winter weather. Dangerous livestock conditions are going to continue through early next week. The wind chill values, we'll show you some charts here, are going to get dangerously cold and will be a real concern for stock growers as we go into the weekend and early next week. These are current temperatures as of 5 a.m. So these were the current temperatures reported across the northern plains and the northern and central Rockies as of 5 a.m. And you can see these are in Fahrenheit. All of the sub 20 degree temperatures up here in Montana, up across North Dakota into Minnesota. And then you can see the penetration of the single digit to sub-zero temperatures a little bit further south. But look how far south these single digit temperatures are getting. And then you can see the higher terrain, the higher elevation areas still holding back the Arctic air. Just a big wall there of granite holding back the Arctic air. If we were to go further south, notice the colder air continues to make a further penetration south and east. Single-digit temperatures now heading into Chicago and the Great Lakes. And if you go eastward into the Great Lakes, sub-zero temperatures in the UP of Michigan. Look at that. That is a minus 39 up there in the areas just north of the Minnesota-Canadian border area. And now single digits and sub-zeros getting into New England. So the Arctic air is getting stretched east-west across a large part of the nation. And you can see that. Here is the polar vortex, and those maps I just showed you really highlight where my black line is where the boundary of that really bitter cold Arctic air is. Over time, this vortex is going to spin a little bit to the south and west, and really for our neck of the world, our part of the world, it's this tail of Arctic air on this vortex, the vortex that is going to be sliding in and causing the Arctic air to deepen and to bring us our winter weather conditions at the end of the week and the weekend. And you can see this is by Thursday afternoon. This is as of now. This is by tomorrow afternoon. Kind of looks like a tadpole of Arctic air here. And that's exactly what's going to be sweeping on through to the southeast. And as we get into Saturday, this is noon Saturday, although you don't really see the tail in the upper level charts, the Arctic tail is just like this on the ground. Because what I'm showing you, the chart I'm showing you here represents the weather conditions at 18,000 feet, or what we call the 500 millibars. And these colors here represent temperatures, warmer air aloft, and then you can see the bitter cold here in the darker blue colors. So the colors represent temperature. The wind barbs represent 18,000 foot winds aloft. And why I show you these charts at 18,000 feet is this is where all the weather happens, basically. This is where a lot of what we see in the structure of the atmosphere relates to what we see on the ground. So it doesn't look like much, folks, but what I'm showing you here is that tail of Arctic air starts to come in full force on the ground here. And this little guy right here, notice the shape. This is a trough. It doesn't look like much, but there's an area of low pressure here. And this area of low pressure is bringing relatively mild Pacific air and humidity in and pushing it right here. And what'll happen is as we discussed in yesterday's podcast, that more mild, more moisture-laden Pacific air with this low here is getting thrown up and over and on top of that Arctic tail that's coming on through. This is the end result. We are going to be looking at that overrunning snow developing. Really, in some areas, we'll start to see the overrunning up here beginning tomorrow and into tomorrow night and Friday morning, and some of that will even leak down here a little bit. But as we get into Friday, Saturday, there's going to be a good slug of that Pacific moisture causing that overrunning, with another wave coming in Saturday night, Sunday into Monday, causing more overrunning. So this is by Sunday night and into Monday morning. The snow ratios with the water, since it will be so cold, will make for a fair amount of snow. And as we discussed yesterday, this is the really big area of overrunning snow right here. It could shift a little south, it could shift a little north, depending on where the deepest Arctic air is, because the heavier snow will be where the Arctic air is the deepest and where it interfaces with that Pacific moisture. You can see, though, throughout all of the Intermountain West, back to the Pacific Northwest, into the Great Basin here, you're still going to be getting mountain snows. Let's take a look at temperatures and see how they unfold. Now, what I'm going to show you aren't the forecasted temperatures, but apparent temperature. Essentially, what I'm showing you is what the forecasted wind chills are going to be over the worst part of this cold snap. So this is by Friday morning. You see this? That is a minus 60 up around north central areas of Montana. Look at these minus 50 wind chills, minus 40 wind chills in eastern Montana and areas of North Dakota. But look at these wind chill values getting 30 to 40 below in central Wyoming, getting really, really cold. And you can still see the Continental Divide doing its best to hold back that Arctic air west of the divide. By Saturday morning, we're approaching minus 50 wind chills up here. And these wind chill values are going to be extremely dangerous up into those areas. By Monday morning, we have minus 50 wind chills all the way into northeastern Nebraska, and dangerously cold wind chills now getting all the way to eastern Colorado, western Nebraska. So these aren't forecasted temperatures, but wind chills. Dangerously cold. That is life-threatening if you're not prepared. Now, I want to show you something. We'll see if this is going to happen or not. So we'll put our question mark on here, but I just want to show you the intensity of this cold. This is the forecast for sunrise Tuesday morning for the Gulf Coast of Texas. These are not Celsius temperatures. These are Fahrenheit. Look at this. Single digits on the Gulf Coast of Texas, with temperatures going below zero in Dallas. Now, this may be overdone. It may not be this cold, but it's showing you the intensity of the Arctic wave. Look at these waters out over the warm Gulf, the air temperatures. I mean, that is something that doesn't happen very often. And actually, it shows it's snowing over the Gulf of Mexico by Tuesday morning, with some more significant snows in Texas. So the northward and southward extent of this Arctic air mass really by early next week will go from Alaska to the Gulf Coast. Next week, there isn't really much hope for a big warm-up. Even though the worst of the Arctic air is going to retreat a little bit and be more north, we need a more westerly wind to get rid of the Arctic air. So while temperatures aren't going to be as cold by, let's say, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of next week, there's no big warm-up coming. We're not going to get that Chinook that sometimes happens after an Arctic outbreak that gives us a big warm-up. So a big warm-up is not on the table, just a gradual one. And we're going to see some of the cold air spill over the western side of the divide. So we may see temperatures a lot colder here than they are right now because of this pattern. A quick update on Snowpack. I wanted to do this earlier in the week and I forgot to do it, but the snowpacks have grown. The upper North Platte in particular, and the Little Snake, Lower Green here, these were all in the mid-70s a week ago. They've gone up 10%. We've seen a good increase of 10% on the Laramie lower North Platte as well. And we've seen the snowpack go up here in northern and north central areas of Wyoming. You know, the Jackson Hole ski area in the last 3 weeks has received over 100 inches of snow. In fact, last week, the Tetons, the Jackson Hole ski areas got 5 feet of snow. That's led to a really big increase in avalanche danger, and there have been news reports of a lot of fatalities and avalanches in the western states over the last week. Utah, Colorado, other western states, avalanche activity is up, and that's going to be a concern because the mountains are about ready to get another big slug of snow as well. So this is somewhat encouraging. The snowpacks are still below average, but there's been a nice spike, same in Colorado. So get ready for the cold. We'll have more details for you tomorrow. Have a good Wednesday, everybody, and stay warm.